Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody is doing good today. So our webinar today is on the future of work, adapting to new realities. And first of all, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Ambika. I work with Career Sense at Health. And now I would like to introduce you to our speakers. So first we have Gene Lim from N Squared E-Commerce, SCN-BHD. He is the country general manager and he is also an ex-health graduate of 2010. Hello, Gene.
Hey, Ambika. Hi. Nice to meet you guys.
Hi. How are you doing today?
Great. E-commerce is moving faster than before, so very busy and very happy.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. All right. So our next speaker is from Cat Bay, Oh Chin Ai, and she is the People and Leadership Development Manager. Hello, Oh Chin Ai.
Hi, people. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Glad that you're joining us. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you.
And our third speaker for today is from Robert Walters, Hua Chun Gan, and he is the Associate Director.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good. All right. So let's begin. And first of all, thank you once again for being here. I would like to do a quick little icebreaker activity so we can all get in the group of things here. So I guess a question that I would like to ask you is, could you tell me a fun fact about yourself? For example, a fun fact about me is that I used to be an avid non-vegetarian. I used to eat a lot of nasi lemak and it was my daily meal until recently I have gone vegan. So now I have sacrificed my daily nasi lemak for something more plant-based, I guess. So that's a fun fact about me. How about you, Jean Lim? What's a fun fact about yourself?
Before I start my fun fact, I think Ambika, I've dated a vegan before and wasn't easy.
Yeah, I can definitely vouch for that lifestyle not being easy.
Yeah, not easy. A lot of discipline. So fun fact about myself then. So I'm a bit more bigger size. I weigh about 150 kilograms, but despite that, in the last 6 years, I've climbed up the Himalayas 3 times. So it's something I'm very proud. I love it. The reason why I love it is because I get totally disconnected in that area. No connections at all. So despite me being in e-commerce, that's my break. Getting disconnected from all the internet stuff. Yeah.
That's actually really good. That's a good achievement. That's a great achievement, actually. Oh, that's nice. Nice. How about you, Chin Ai?
Yeah, I think for me, I would travel near and far to get good food. So I think I love how we're sort of surrounding our fun facts about food. So yeah, I would I'm from Ipoh, and so yes, definitely would travel near and far for good food.
Right, food is what we all love the most. Something that none of us would like to ever give up.
Yes, I think so. Truly Malaysian.
Yes, definitely truly Malaysian. How about you, Hua Chun? A fun fact about yourself.
Yeah, so for me, right, when I was in high school, I used to be very active in bowling. So actually one of my career aspirations was to become a professional bowler. And I was actually planning to take a year off uni to pursue that career. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. I ended up studying accounting and finance in Monash. And yeah, now I'm a recruiter.
Oh, nice.
In mysterious ways.
Nice. I enjoy bowling as well. I would try to go every weekend for bowling, but I'm not that good at it. All right. Does any participants have any fun facts that they would like to tell us? Please drop it in the chat if you would like to. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing some fun facts about yourself. And now I think we will begin. So I'd just like to give a brief overview of what today's webinar is about. So our title of the webinar is The Future of Work, Adapting to New Realities. So with the changing times, the future of work has changed drastically due to the pandemic that just happened. So people are leaning towards going more digital. There are new job opportunities that are happening to cater to these new changes, and many are still trying to learn how to adapt to this new reality. So before the pandemic, everybody was trying to adapt going online and going through this whole new lifestyle change. But now that people are coming back, it's still not the same norm as it used to be before. There is a whole new reality that people are still trying to adapt to. So those who are working, such as myself, and those that are just going to go to the field of work have started wondering what this world of work is like now for companies, or even for personally, what will it be like from now on? So we have invited all three of you to come and speak to us about this topic, to share your perspectives and to share your thoughts. So thank you once again for joining us today. So I'd like to kick this off with a question that I have for all of you. I would like to know how the pandemic has affected your company. For example, have you faced any challenges, and how have you overcome them? Such as, do you have any new strengths that you feel that you have seen? Jean, can we start with you? Can I have your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so maybe to share a bit of context as well. I think about 8 years ago, I co-wrote a book called The Workforce of the Future, and today's topic is the future of work, right? Interestingly, even 8 years ago, there was a direction moving towards this. There was a lot more flexibility, fragmented kind of workforce. People working from home a little bit more and such. Yeah. So it didn't really change. It was just super accelerated by the pandemic. Yeah. So I think coming back to your question, Ambika, from an e-commerce perspective, during the lockdowns, especially the first year of the lockdown, a lot of people didn't notice it, but from e-commerce, we were literally the last line of economic defense, right? The whole country was shut down, money, cash flow was all strapped up, and we were the only ones that were able to, or allowed by the government to function. So what were our challenges really was, overnight when the lockdown happened, we had suddenly had to serve the country. It's no longer serving the small little portion of e-commerce sales. We were serving the country's needs where everywhere was locked down. I remember very clearly, when there was a trend back then when people were saying, oh, there was no more gardenia bread. I'm not sure if Chin Ai and Pechun, you remember the gardenia issue where people were fighting for bread. Automatically, overnight, my bread makers sold out. I had to scramble bread makers. I had to kind of steal supply from Singapore, to say, I'm going to get bread makers from Malaysia, Singapore, you get it last. Yeah, so we had to be really, really fast in what we did. That's number one. On top of that, our challenge was really both physical and mental. Physically, I was so afraid that my guys would get infected. And at that time, we didn't have vaccines. The moment one guy infected, my whole warehouse was shut down for at least a week, right? And mentally, my guys were being pushed to the brim. Every single day, our brands would call us and say, I want to sell more. My offline is no longer working, it's dead. I want to sell more. What can we do more every day? Yeah. So what used to be e-commerce as maybe about 3 to 5% contribution to national sales, suddenly overnight became 90% with the same workforce, with the same capacity. My warehouse from a 9 to 6 working hour became a 24-hour for the last 3 weeks. Yeah. So I had people breaking down. I had people mentally telling me, I'm done, I'm burnt out. So I think that was a challenge. However, the strong ones always survive. They push through. They look for opportunities and say, if I don't do this now, the next pandemic is probably another 100 years away, right? So from an e-commerce perspective, we dug deep. We tried everything that we could, from, as I said, simple things like stealing supplies from Singapore or introducing new products that maybe consumers never ever thought of in the past, right? And more importantly, we learned how to manage mental health issues. I think part of my CV showed that I used to work with Shopee. I used to lead their consumer electronics business, and it was really apparent. We even had to hire professionals to come into the office to manage mental health issues. Yeah.
All right. You mentioned that you have also made some new products. Could you give us a little bit Could you let us know what kind of new products you've made?
Sure. I think from a demand perspective, we've seen some of our brands pivot towards doing things that are more anti-COVID, right? Suddenly you start seeing light bulb companies coming up with lights that kill COVID through UV rays automatically. All other development stopped, right? You see air purifiers that are coming with clinical results saying, if you put this air purifier here, it kills COVID. So you see tons of it. I even had furniture companies that are coming in and say, I'm pivoting and I'm selling hand sanitizers today, right? So the business pivot was fast, very, very fast. But subsequently, at the e-commerce stage, we also have to educate the people in a shorter period as compared to traditional marketing, which you could take a sweet time of 2 years. We had 2 months, right? Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's very interesting. How about you, Chin Ai? What challenges have you faced or your company has faced, and how have you overcome it?
Yeah, I think pretty similar to Jane. So we don't do e-commerce, but we do fintech. And so what that means is we provide sort of financial solutions to different SMEs across Malaysia, as well as alternative financing. So I think through the pandemic, because we were already sort of exploring fintech and we were already exploring alternative financing for SMEs in Malaysia prior to the pandemic. I think similar to sort of e-commerce in a way, because of the pandemic, our sort of we became a lot more relevant compared to before the pandemic, right? So there were more businesses sort of coming to us. And I think with that, then because in a way, we need to make sure that we are financing legitimate companies, legitimate businesses. What was hard with the pandemic was actually sort of things like doing site visits and making sure that, they are legitimate businesses kind of thing. So I would say from the business sense, I think that was pretty hard. And how CapBay sort of overcame that was by implementing different and new structures, right? So different policies in place, different infrastructures and frameworks in place to make sure that what we needed to achieve was still being done, even though sort of physical site visits couldn't be done during sort of the MCO periods. And then I think like just company culture wise, right? Because especially with this webinar talking about future of work, I think before the pandemic already, as a startup, we were already a very tight-knit sort of community. Like the employees across the board, you develop friendships outside of work as well. And so I think with the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, because we didn't come to work sort of physically in person to the office, right? So I think at first that was pretty hard on people's sort of sense of belonging and sense of community. But I think as the pandemic sort of moved on, also adapted and sort of learned to adjust and introduce different sort of activities, different bonding activities. We use Gather Town in CapBay to sort of model the sort of virtual version of our physical office. But then at the same time, also creating spaces where people can definitely come and talk to one another outside of work and in a more sort of chill manner. And I would say that the other thing is probably also from there, then sort of the hybrid working model has taken place. So yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing. How about you, Hua Chun? Any challenges that you have faced at Robert Walters?
Yeah, so unlike Jean and Chin Ai, right, whose business is e-commerce and I guess fintech, right, where it's quite mobile, ours is a more traditional business. I mean, when during the pandemic, there was a lot of talked about essential and non-essential businesses, right? So we fall under the non-essential category, right? And I think the first thing that a lot of organizations did when the pandemic happened was cut hiring talents because they didn't have revenue, there was no jobs, so they didn't need us to hire talents. So that was our biggest challenge in 2020. And we're a business where we rely a lot on physical interactions with our people and with our candidates and clients. So when everything was locked down, right, we had to move to remote working and virtual interviews. So last time, a lot of the interviews were done face-to-face, right? virtual interviews were not very common or not common at all, right? A lot of times you want to go to the office and go for an interview, see the office. But a lot of our clients had to adapt to implementing working virtually and interviewing talents virtually, right? So I think that was that huge transition. So to be honest, when I think the pandemic started we went into lockdown on the 18th of March. And then I think for 6 months, we literally had zero, like minimal clients. We even had clients where they hired our candidates, but they had to retract some of the offers because their business were impacted. They had known, like especially in hospitality or travel, right? They couldn't hire the person because there was the country was in lockdown, right? There was nothing they could do. So we had to then figure out how we're going to help talents and how we're going to help our clients navigate through that difficult times. So I think that was really the most challenging part of the business, I think. But I think through adversity, there's always an opportunity. So I think comes Q3, Q4 of 2020, I think the country as a whole adjusted to what we call the new normal, right? And people started implementing work from home or virtual interviews. Organizations had to pivot and adapt new working environments. And one of it then came the interviewing talents virtually, onboarding people virtually, right? Because the office was still closed, right? So that was an experience for all of us. And I think, ironically, looking back at 2021, we actually had a record-breaking year that surpassed pre-pandemic times, right? Because I guess we stayed relevant. We made sure that we were interacting for our clients, doing a lot of webinars, providing them with future insights on what are the latest trends, and eventually the business picked up. And yeah, so here we are today.
That's actually really good to hear about 2021 being a record-breaking year. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How about for your team? Because like Chin Ai and Jean mentioned about mental health. Yep. So did you see any challenges regarding
I think that was one of the biggest challenge, right? Because we are very used to physical interaction. So we had to find ways to connect and operate with each other virtually. So we did a lot of virtual lunches. We played games virtually. We send each other gifts. We're a small office of about 60 consultants, right? So to be honest, everyone kind of knows everyone, and it's like family, right? So, and we operate also in a very high stress environment because at the end of the day, what we do is sales, right? We have targets to hit and KPIs to aim for. And a lot of them, sometimes because of working from home, some don't have the most ideal environment to work from home. Like you have young kids screaming in the background when we're doing meetings, or you have parents who need help, right? Taking care of their family. So there was a lot of new things that we had to navigate and embark on. And it's about building that trust with your people. Yeah, that helped us navigate through that time. So a lot of interaction, a lot of virtual calls, a lot of check-ins, right, to make sure that they're okay. Yeah, a lot of free lunches, right? We got through it.
Yeah, we also had that. We had morning coffee sessions on Friday where everybody's drinking coffee together. We had bonding sessions. So yeah, I understand. How about you, Jean and Chin Ai? Anything similar to that which you did or your team?
Chin Ai, you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think from our perspective is my guys were just working hard through and through. I was working equally hard. There was no time to breathe, and constantly from an engagement perspective, it was very challenging. We couldn't see them. Half the time we tried to work rotational until our government decided to block every street down, right? So then we even eventually thought of things like, what if we sent care packages to the homes, right? Which we eventually did, some care packages with vitamins and all that, but those was really small. So what we tried to do was something simple. Once a week, we called a lockdown, meaning everyone stop work. You can come online together just to talk anything about work. So they talked about movies, they played some online games, they even played Mobile Legends, and I participated in some of them, right? So, but it was important because you wanted them to say, work is work and life is life. There's still life in the pandemic,
Right.
I think for us was making sure that the managers and the bosses don't sort of text outside work hours, right? So text and or email asking for things. So schedule send was definitely a friend of a lot of our directors, kind of thing, because different people work at different hours, and different people are night owls or morning sort of early birds, right? So we allowed and allowed that flexibility and that freedom, but then also we sort of expected people to respect the sort of 10 to 7 work hours, and then making sure that no work emails or work texts were being sent out during the weekends, kind of thing. So I think that was something that we put in place, especially because of the pandemic, right? Because I think before this, we had you had the office space as the sort of, in that sense, the boundary that was there. But then with working from home, then we had to set up a bit more sort of a virtual kind of boundaries to ensure people's well-being were also being taken care of. I think another thing that we also introduced because of the pandemic is partnership with mental health providers. So we actually partnered with this mental health sort of startup called Allo Mind, and so they would actually have sort of psychologists and counselors to talk with our sort of employees, and also employee sort of wellness, our mental health wellness survey to being done, so to understand a bit more on the ground what's happening with our employees, and how can we best sort of support and help them, right? So actually not help, but really just to support and to come alongside, because like all of us would know, mental health, and then also just like other than work, there's so many other different concerns and worries and fears that we would have because of the pandemic, right? So yeah, and definitely I think care packages as well. But like I think like G mentioned, our care packages was a bit more on the sort of the minor side of things. I think the major thing was really for the managers also to really have one-on-one conversations with their team members, and to make sure that everyone is sort of together with the company, and then I think virtual town halls to ensure like transparency. So they had Jean, you all had Mobile Legends, we had Tetris, so we called it Tetrimino. So it was a tournament where everyone sort of grouped together and just played Tetris together. So yeah.
Well, I think like a common thing that I'm kind of understanding from all three of you with the challenges is you've all faced a lot of challenges in keeping up with the new trends, and keeping up with the pandemic changing things, closing a lot of things down in terms of like clients, your team getting burned out. But also I feel nowadays with the pandemic, it has brought about the topic of mental health and well-being a lot more these days. So coming back to our topic on the future of work, adapting to new realities, do you think that going on from now that since the pandemic is coming, do you think that mental health and well-being is going to be a big thing in the new reality of the future of work? Chin Ai, what can I get your thoughts on this? Do you think it's going to be part of the new reality that in the future of work?
Yeah, I think the importance of mental health has in a way like always been highlighted, right? Especially by mental health professionals. But I think like because of the pandemic and because of how sort of you can see very clearly now, especially now, just the correlation between mental health as well as like work performance. I think because of that, then it would definitely be something that's on people's minds as an employee as well, right? So as an employee, I'm thinking of joining an organization that does care not only for my financial health, but also for my mental health as well, right? So I think not to say that mental health was not important before, but because of the pandemic, I would say that the pandemic has sort of pushed mental health concerns and mental health understanding and awareness to the forefront also in sort of working places or working cultures, which I think is a great thing.
Okay, right. Yeah. How about Wachun? What is your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think due to pandemic, right, because everyone was working from home, there's really no switch to distance yourself from working and non-working. You know, last when we were previously going to the office, right, you have that time getting ready, going to the office, working in the office, and then coming home to a safe place to relax and kind of like be done for the day. But right now, everything is at home. Your work, your life, your family, everything is integrated into one, which caused a lot of confusion for a lot of people, right? Because where's the balance? How do I actually switch off after work? We get a lot of feedback from clients saying that they are working longer hours than before. Like I think Jean's example, he's working 24 hours, right? It's non-stop because you have to work out new ways of working. And because of that, a lot of people suffer burnouts, right? Mental burnouts. They were tired, they were lethargic. So I think this highlighted the importance of having balance in your life and taking care of your mental health, because if mentally you're not healthy, you cannot perform at an optimum level in your organization, right? You have to be mentally healthy, and that's why we encourage our people to take breaks. You know, we speak a lot about work-life balance, right, last time, but now it's integrating work and life together. Like, so they have this new terminology called work-life integration, right, where work and life becomes one, right? Where if let's say you need to do a grocery run during lunchtime, well, you just make it up and work later, right? So there's really a fine line of when you want to work, and there's no more than 9 to 6 anymore. And it's important for us to acknowledge that, like what Chinai mentioned earlier, some people work better in the morning, some people work better at night. At the end of the day, as long as the work gets done, right, we have to trust our people to ensure that they get things done, right? So I think the topic of mental health has always been very important, but because of the pandemic where everything becomes one, right, there's no cut off, like there's no time where you can move, you can't leave the house because everywhere is locked down, right? You can't go out, you're stuck at home, you see your dinner, breakfast, lunch, breakfast, dinner is at the same place, right? And it's very frustrating for some people, so we really need to understand that.
Right. Yep, I completely agree with you on that. Jean, can I get your thoughts on this as well?
So I think mental health, or managing mental health, it's a huge challenge. It's not only due to the sensitivity of the human emotion and human intellectual well-being and such, but like what Wachun said, right, work-life integration, that minefield. I think as a recruiter, Wachun, you got it even more difficult at this. But I always say that mental health is a very individualized thing, right? If I hired a psychiatrist to come into the office, I can't heal everyone. I can't prevent everyone from falling that down black pit of depression. Because some people can take it further and some people have it at a certain level. And we have to learn, as management, we have to learn how to respect that. We should never ever say you need to stretch your limit, because we don't know their story. We don't know where they come from, how bad is it at home. I once entered a management meeting when I was back in Shopee. A friend of mine just was a new father, right? And he was locked down. Throughout the meeting, the baby was crying, right? And it's normal. You don't shut the baby up. But how do you manage it? He tried to lock all the doors. He tried to even work in the garden. Poor guy, you know. And constantly he goes like, "Hey guys, sorry, give me a pause. I need to handle the baby," right? So there was a form of empathy there. You know, and it was a form of pity as well, you know, to that person. But coming back to mental health, how do you scale individualized service? How do you scale, say, just 3 of us, Jean, Wachun, and Jean I? Our levels are different. Our capacity is different. Do we expect the same of each other? That's very challenging. Yeah, I mean, during the pandemic when e-commerce was booming, personally, I think I'm a bit older, so my capacity to suffer torment is a bit better. I even bought a bed to sleep in the warehouse just because I didn't want to travel back home anymore. Traveling back home with all the roadblocks would have just cost me additional sleeping hours. Yeah, so I bought a bed, I slept in the warehouse, cool for me. But some of my guys couldn't do that because they just needed to go home, and I respect that. So I think that's a challenge until today. The easiest thing management or senior people can do is really know every individual, what they're going through at a personal level, and say, maybe it's time for you to go home, take a break. If someone can stretch further, by all means, but you have to identify that. It's not a psychiatrist can do it. Your supervisors should be doing it because they work with you every single day.
Right. I completely agree with you on that. Thank you, all three of you, for sharing your point of view and your thoughts and opinions on this. Moving on, for every crisis that we face, such as right now for the pandemic, you've all mentioned some new opportunities that have come up for your respective companies. So can you let me know a little bit more about the opportunities that have come up during the pandemic? And if there are any that you would carry forward post-pandemic to the new norm, to the new reality? Are there any things from the pandemic that you feel like you or your company would like to carry forward to the new reality, which will go on in long term? Chin Ai, can I get your point of view on this one?
Yeah, I think the opportunity to sort of run fully hybrid in a sense where, right, we respect and trust our employees enough that we know that whatever work that we have given to them and they're responsible to do, that they will get done by the deadline, right? And so I think with that, just the flexibility and the freedom of working when you are able to perform at your best, right? So I think that is an opportunity that has come up for us. And then I think also just for us, it's also really as we are moving on from a startup to a more enterprise level kind of company, just the frameworks and the structures that have come up during the pandemic, right? So I don't know, because the truth is the pandemic did happen, right? So I don't know whether, if there was no pandemic, how the growth would have been. But with the pandemic and with the growth that we have sort of experienced, in that, and there are certain sort of structures and process flows as well as frameworks that have come up that are sort of in a way resistant to like us having to go back into MCO mode, where we have to fully work from home again, right? So in that sense, those frameworks can withstand that risk of us, potentially having to go back fully remote again. So I think these are, in a way, it is an opportunity, or it is a sort of a framework that we will be using and will continue to use even in the future. And I think for opportunities, culture-wise or like engagement-wise, we're definitely still going to use like hybrid working mode, as well as just having partnerships with mental health providers and making sure that our managers are also well trained to sort of, like Jean mentioned just now, right, to understand their team members and to empathize with their team members a lot more, as well as I guess like in a way like working with our employees to so that they're able to perform at their best, and never at the expense of their own mental health. So yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that. Hua Chun, how about for you?
Yeah, I think similar to Chin Ai, right? Our business was, like I mentioned earlier, a very traditional business where we did everything physically. But because of the pandemic, right, we had to move everything virtual. And we actually realized that by moving it virtual, we still could operate at a high optimum capacity, right? Like I mentioned, we had a record-breaking year. And actually some of our employees really enjoyed working from home because they didn't have to travel to the office. They didn't get stuck in traffic. You save a lot of time interviewing candidates, because last time we used to do it face-to-face. You have to make sure that they come to the office. But now with virtual, right, anyone can do it anywhere, right? You can take you can do an interview at home. You can block out 45 minutes of your time to do an interview with us, and all the interviews are done virtually at home as well. So there was that time we saved a lot. Previously, making arrangements to go from one office to another, to traveling, really helped, made us more efficient in that sense, right? And I think we've, like Chin Ai, so with the new ways of working, we've actually implemented a fully hybrid work environment now, where we only go to the office 2-3 times a week, and the rest of the time is working from home, and that's here to stay until for forever lah, for now, right? So we've provided allowances for our employees to set up their workstation, right? One-time allowances where they can, buy a big monitor, a nice chair, right? Instead of using the dining chair, a work desk set up to make sure that there is a space for you to work from home, right? Yeah. So those were some of the opportunities that we experienced as a business during that pandemic that really helped us. And I think the business from fully physical presence, now we're also all around the world globally, we've operated in a hybrid model. And it works because you get the best of both worlds. Sometimes you go out to meet clients, and sometimes if on days where you feel like you just want to work from home, you work from home.
Okay, so you are taking the hybrid working mode into the new reality as well. That's something that you will continue doing.
Yeah, it's here to stay, I think. And I think most organizations are doing that because, I think a good example is when, I think this year during Chinese New Year, we thought that COVID was over. And then everyone started celebrating Chinese New Year. And then the cases went up like crazy, right? So we're actually back at that time. But because of Chinese New Year, the cases, everyone was getting COVID at that time. We had to then move back to hybrid, right? So we realized as a business that there's no point coming back full time because you never know when the next phase will come in. And you don't know, and when we're approaching the endemic stage, right? You don't know what's going to happen, right? So we have to adopt and adapt to the new normal.
Yeah. That's the whole reason for this webinar, adapting to this new reality that we have right now. Yeah. Jean, how about you?
Yeah, so I think quite similarly with both the Fortune and Chennai, it's the new norm is here. It's not going to disappear. And it's quite evident when you see big companies like Nestle shrinking their office size by 30%. They are saying, we no longer need those kind of office size. We're going to work from home. We're going to do rotation the whole year long, right? But that's really the part where I say, okay, how do we manage our legacy way of working? But how about the future? So when it comes to future, I'm very thrilled because, I would like to quote one of the wonderful lecturers in Help University who used to tell me to my face, Jean, the world has become so boring since the Renaissance stage. Nothing new has been created. All you guys do is create one handphone after another, but the real function of a handphone is just to call, right? Yeah. Or maybe now in these days, text or send pictures or whatnot. And I think we all have come to a point of a hard reset. How do we do things digitally, right? Without losing the essence of work, without losing the essence of performance. If you look at e-commerce from N-Square perspective, it was a hard reset. How do you sell things that no longer needs to be run on a discount? How do you sell things that people cannot touch, people cannot feel, people cannot smell? But yet, they trust you to say, I'm going to put 50 ringgit here, and I pray to God the item comes to me in one piece. How do you do that? Yeah. I think that hard reset is so interesting, and we are only at the infancy stage of things. A lot of people are rediscovering what it means to operate a warehouse cleanly. A lot of people are rediscovering marketing 101. What does it mean by brand equity? In the past, I think 2 years before the pandemic, our big boys at Shopee Lazada has been around. But people buy because it was a good deal. People did not buy because there was brand equity, or people didn't buy because the item was something I needed or I thought I wanted. But now it's changed, right? If you go to Shopee Lazada, for those who shop a lot here, you realize that people no longer buy because it's a 50% discount. People buy because I am used to buying online and I'm going to look for it. Yeah. So that hard reset, I think, has given a lot of us opportunities to rethink who we are as human beings, how we can function with other human beings without looking at their faces or even talking to them. And to balance the old world, that's the tough one. To balance the old world where, we still want to feel human. It's not like that movie Ready Player One, right, where everything's online and such. My goodness.
Right.
I watched that movie. I had a lot of happiness because I saw a lot of my old heroes. But I think if I really live in that world, I could be really scared. really, really scared.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and of course, we all know Facebook is going to metaverse. Yeah. I'm not sure for all the students here, please go read it up. That's literally Ready Player One in the movie. You know, Justin Bieber had their first concert on metaverse, where people attended through what they call as goggles. A big audit company bought a property on metaverse, right, just to house their people digitally in metaverse. Mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. Yeah. So
Right.
so there is a whole new verse now that's called metaverse is happening that a lot of us are not seeing. I hope I get my feet into it, but imagine that world coming up in 2-3 years' time. Imagine that world coming up and say, hey, it's a new earth, digital earth. What are you going to do? Half your friends could go on there. Half of maybe Fortune's candidates will be that side, and Fortune's like, oh no, I need to start speaking to them in a meta world and create an avatar of myself there, right? But what about the earth here? So I think yes, we have learned to adapt to the new norm, but this new norm is not gonna. It's here to stay, but it's also here to transform again. It's happening so fast, so fast. Yeah.
Right. So you don't think that we're done with our transformation yet? You feel like this, right?
Hardly done.
You mean we've barely touched the surface?
Barely touched the surface, and why I say hardly done is because the people that were very biased towards the digital world, they want digital, had it a bit tough before the pandemic, right? They go up to brands, they go up to companies and say, hey, let's do digital, and they go like, no, I don't need this, I don't want to spend money. But the moment the pandemic hit, everything pivoted that side. This is literally gear 5 for them in a car, and they're not going to lose out on opportunity. They will force the change. Yeah, they will force that change, and we'll see it happen in a sense.
Right. Because of the pandemic, I feel a lot of us have gone digital, and we've all also learned a lot of new skills. I personally have definitely been learning a lot of new skills, attending courses online on data analytics, digital marketing, all of these upcoming branches. So because I've also had to learn new skills, I am also wondering whether there are new skills that organizations deem very important nowadays when they hire new people or when they're looking for people to work with them. So did you have to learn any of these new skills, or has your organization made a certain set of skills very important to know? Can we start with Hua Chun this time? Can I know your thoughts and opinions on this?
Yeah, I think when it comes to news, a lot of during the pandemic, right, there were a lot of webinars, there were a lot of free short courses on coding, digital transformation, AI, right? So, and a lot of people took that opportunity to learn those things. But if you ask me whether right now, if organizations are looking for new skills, I really think it depends on the field that you're in. So for example, if you're in technology, I think understanding the latest programming language or knowing the latest application that developers are currently developing, that's important. If you're in finance, for example, I think knowing the latest accounting standards or how finance has transformed from a back-end organization to become a more business partner to help business make decisions is relatively important, right? So scaling and upscaling yourself really depends on the industry that you're in and what skill sets you plan to bring to employees, right? And from an employer point of view, it's how bright is that person and how willing is he to step up to learn this new technology, because the world we're going in right now is constantly evolving, right? The latest technologies are coming up every day, right? So it really once again comes back to the industry that you're in. Like in sales and marketing, then obviously digital marketing is the new thing. But if you realize about digital marketing, one thing I realized that when borders started reopening or when the shopping mall started to open, a lot of people still went back to traditional retail marketing. I don't know if Jean feels the same way on this, but there was if you go to One Utama, for example, it's packed with people because I think people miss the physical sense of going to a mall and looking at products and buying it again, right, rather than doing it online. So yeah, these were some things that we noticed during that transition. But at the end of the day, I think the future is still e-commerce. But
Okay, well, I am also very guilty of being one of those people that crowd wanatama because I miss being in a crowd of
Yeah, you
people.
miss that physical interaction, right? Like actually going to a
Yes,
store
yes,
and buying something that you can touch and
right,
feel and smell, like what you
right.
can't do when it's online, right? So that's
Mm.
where something that I guess we are still trying to adjust and learn to. Yeah.
Right. How about, for example, in the field of psychology, do you feel like there are any new skills that people are looking for in terms of that now?
I think when it comes to psychology, it's probably like mental wellness, right?
Mhm. Right.
Knowing when to take, when your body is telling you that you are suffering through a breakdown,
Right.
or sometimes you go through depression, but you don't really know that you're having depression because you still can function as normal, right? But you don't feel joy, for example, or you don't feel excitement when it comes to work. So it's
Right.
identifying cues like that, I guess, as psychologists, to be
Right.
able to really listen and understand
Mhm.
what is the challenge that your patient or your colleague is facing, right? And really being able to
Mhm.
listen. I think active listening is a skill that is very important, right?
Right.
Because sometimes our mind, when as the person is speaking, our mind is already forming an answer because we want to give
Mhm.
an answer, but we're not really listening to the root cause of the problem, right? So really being
Right.
able to listen is very important.
Right. I completely agree with you. How about you, Dean? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think skill sets wise, definitely digital skill sets are there, right? Again, 10 years ago when I first entered the industry, a lot of talk were talking about this jargon, big data. I'm not sure if anyone
Mhm.
remember those days, big data here and there, right? But now it's come to a point where big data don't mean so much if you can't understand small data, right?
Mhm.
And you start to realize that, yeah, I could want digital marketeers, performance marketeers to come and join me. I could want commercial e-commerce people to join me. But
Mhm.
if they can't understand small data at the root, they can't do big data. Yeah, so I think a
Right.
lot of people are starting to understand that, okay, the fundamentals of data, it's quite clear. We need a lot more people that understands data, know how to slice data, read the data, and interpret data. Yeah,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, even back during my days when I was in the health university, there was not much data education. It was really you learn as you experience, right? And you know, you do your simple rows and columns, and you go like, oh no, why is my formula giving me a DIVX? And then you realize one of the format is wrong or it's not clean, right? And you learn
Right.
all this here when you're working.
Mm.
But now the world's expectations have changed a bit, where they expect you to know data. It's no longer something along the lines, hey, go find the data guy. They will say,
Right.
go run that data. And if you have a
Right.
problem running simple data, you know, chances are you will not be as competitive as the next person. Yeah,
Right.
I think
Okay.
data management at the core is key.
Mhm.
That's number one. Number two, with the danger of big data, and you know, on a daily basis, I get, I don't know, 3,000, 5,000 rows of data coming in every single day.
Mhm.
You will come across a point of data analysis paralysis in that sense. Then the next skill set is not something you can teach, but it's more of
Mm.
how do you find the needle in the haystack? How do you cut off the noise of this data, right? I
Right.
have a lot of partners who come up to me and they want to analyze 100 things, but in
Mhm.
reality, out of the 100 things, only 2 things matter that changes anything.
Mm.
If you can find that 2 things and you can tell them and say, look, ignore 98, I'll still do it for you, but this 2 is your key one. That's where your data competency plus your data reading competency combines you to be a much better person in the digital world. I think the second part of data competency, where you're able to find the 2 out of the 100, that is
Yeah.
very, very hard to train. It's all about grinding. It's all about, have I done Excel sheets for 5 years in a row? And the Excel sheets got to be the level where it crashes my laptop every single time I open an Excel sheet. If you have not done that kind of Excel sheet before, you have not dug deep down to data before. That's my word. Yeah. So I think those are my skill sets that I think will be more of a demand in the future. And if we look at the traditional world, right? I used to report to one of the P&G CEOs in Europe, and he runs data in his mind in the traditional world really, really fast because of experience and exposure. He can literally come up to me from an M&A perspective and say, okay, Gene, I'd like to sell this product to another company for X amount of million euros. And he can calculate that behind his cigarette box. Right? Someone like me who had maybe 3 years worth of data had to prepare a data sheet that was, I don't know, 26 tabs, I remember, 26 tabs worth of data just to calculate valuation. But he was not very far out from me and he did it behind the cigarette box. You know, and it wasn't because he was born smart. It was because he has done his time in working on data sheets for the last 20 years per se. That is very important. And I think maybe my message to the rest of the students here is don't be afraid to go to data. Don't be afraid to go deep down. It's a requirement to get there, right? You can never be a superhero after that. Yeah. So Ambika, I think someone asked a question. Would you be answering it later or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. How about you, Chin-Ai? Any new skills that your organization has seen come up? Any new skills that you deem that are very important?
Yeah, I think as a fintech company, we are constantly hiring sort of software engineers because we are constantly needing to sort of upgrade and also make sure that our platform, our tech platform is up to date and is good, right, for the user experience. So I would say like definitely UI UX is very important, especially if you are wanting to go into the tech field, wanting to go into a fintech field, for example. But I agree with both Hua Chun and Jean. Definitely is identifying the industry that you want to go in. And then also just being good at it. And then also data is so important. And I would also maybe also counter and say like sometimes like data management, like Jean mentioned, it's going to be expected, and we won't necessarily need you to put that into your CV, right? Because we're going to expect you to actually know and understand your field enough to be able to say like whenever you have the data, you'll be able to give like a more sort of critical thinking answer, and you've done your analysis and you've done your sort of pros and cons, and you understand what you're encountering with, what you're dealing with, right? The data can just be pure numbers or like pure like, I mean, data can mean nothing or data can mean absolutely everything, right? For example, there's the 2 out of the 100. So I would say, I would say what we are then also looking for as a recruit, like as an employer, is the ability to learn and the eagerness to learn, right? That one, especially with how fast our world is changing, and how it will continue to evolve, I will not actually look for people who are dead set on that one skill that they can offer me, right? But instead, I'm looking for that person who has a bunch of different skills, but is also wanting to learn and wanting to adapt and change, and to bring innovation with them and together with us, right? So I would say that is something also that is ultimately in a way ultimately human, right? So while yes, arm yourself with a lot of like hard skills, I would say, to catch up with this very fast-paced world, but also be human in your active listening skills, your critical thinking skills, and your ability to adapt and change, right? Because I think that in the sense is how we will in a way be just not human anymore, you know? Yeah. I don't know whether I'm making sense, but that's what I think.
No. You're making complete sense. Yep. Because I do believe that there is this misconception that's happening that we don't really need the old skills anymore, that we have to fully focus on these new upcoming skills that are coming up because the pandemic has shown us all of these new skills. So I think from all three of you, the main thing that I got is that even though these new skills are useful for the new norm and the new reality that we have, along with adapting to it, the old skills are just as important. It's very important to have a base first like that before you can adapt to these new skills as well. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. So there is a question from the students that even I am curious about. Have you ever had burnouts from using tech stuff throughout your day?
Maybe I can get this one first. You know, I think Tulang, of an opinion that if there's a tool, it's meant to make your life easier. And once that tool makes your life easier, you're meant to do greater things. When you're meant to do greater things, you wouldn't get the burnout, right? So I think a lot of times people sometimes get a bit scared, especially the older working crowd. They say, oh, this tool is going to replace me, or this system is going to make my job redundant. No, it makes your job currently easier, faster, by right, more efficient, more effectively. That just means it gives you more time to do better things, more quality things. Right? If you don't view a tool that way, you will definitely get a burnout. I guarantee you that. Yeah.
Yep, I completely agree with you. How about you, Chin Ai? Have you ever had any burnouts?
I think yes, I would say I've definitely have had burnouts, right? So I actually prefer to use like a good old like journal and like good old like diary to actually plan out my day. Because I think like for me, I just personally I do better with pen and paper, right? So even though I take fast notes on my laptop and stuff, but if I'm in a creative mode, in a mode where like I want to sort of strategize and plan, for me pen and paper still works best. So I think it's really up to you on a personal basis, but I think I agree with Jean in that the tool is meant to sort of help you, right? And the tool is meant to sort of help you, and then you can move on to do other stuff. So if I feel like I am being tied to a tool, and then I think that is when the tool then becomes a burden, right? And then I think then that's the time to sort of, in a way, maybe make space and create some distance away from that tool, in that sense, I guess.
How about you, Hua Chin? Have you ever had any burnouts?
Yeah, so I think it's really a personal question, right? Because everyone sees technology differently. For me, I'm a big believer in, like Jean, I think using technology to improve my day or makes it easier. Like, now with WhatsApp call, for example, or video calls, you can just call anyone anytime. Last time when you were in university, if you want to talk to your girlfriend, for example, you can't use a video call, right? You have to, I don't know, Skype or do something like nothing that's available on your phone at the time. That was very troublesome, right? And now with technology, anything, and because of that, right, sometimes we have that need for instant gratification, where because everything is available so quickly, everything you want, you can just Google and you get the answer immediately. So that can lead to sometimes people getting impatient when you don't get the answers immediately, or you want that constant need, right? So then you may suffer from burnout because you're always on the go, right, and on looking for something new. But for me, I love technology, right, and I use it to help me do things better, more efficiently, quicker, and I embrace it, because at the end of the day, the future is going to be technology. I think like what Jean said about metaverse, right? Next time, maybe we'll be doing things very differently.
Yeah, definitely agreed. But speaking on that topic, there is something that has come to my attention that I would really like to get your thoughts on. So on this new world of work that's becoming more digital and AI is kind of taking over the workforce, do you think that human labor will still be needed in the years to come, or do you think that there will be a drastic change in your industry, in your organization, or in the world of work generally? What do you think? Hua Chin?
I think this is a really good question. So a lot of times a lot of people ask, will recruitment then become automated, right? Or will, and I think transactional works, like for example, processing invoice or paying bills, can be automated. But I think the human interaction is still very important, especially like when you're doing, I guess changing career could be a life-changing opportunity, right? You want to be able to talk to someone to get advice from, and not an AI to just tell you, okay, your job application has been submitted, please wait for the result, right? And during interviews also, you're still going to be interviewing with actual human beings. So in my opinion, in our world, I think the human interaction when it comes to helping people find opportunities will not be replaced by artificial intelligence anytime soon. Maybe in the next 50 years, I don't know, right? But for now, I think that human interaction of speaking to someone, even when you're looking for a job, you want to talk to people, right? To understand what is it actually the role consists of, what is the challenges that you'll be facing. And
Right.
unfortunately, the technology is not as advanced where a robot can tell you that. So I think, in my opinion, we're not as advanced as that yet. And in recruitment specifically, the human factor is the most important, because the relationship between you and the organizations and you and your candidates helps makes people's decision when it comes to changing careers and hiring talents.
Yep, I completely agree. For example, if I am talking to a recruiter or even a consultant, I would have questions that I would want to ask and receive feedback. So, yep, I agree. The human interaction is a very key element in that field. Right. How about for you, Jean? What do you think?
Okay, so how would I put it this way? I think technology, as long as it makes sense from a dollar cost perspective, will slowly replace human beings. That's, I mean, if I looked at my 80,000 square warehouse, if I replace them with a conveyor belt, sure, things will be fast, right? Blue collar workers typically tend to suffer the first in terms of technology replacement. But then again, my question is, do I need the conveyor belt versus the human labor that I pay? Yeah, that's the first thing. It's always a balance. The moment technology becomes scalable and cheap enough, it will move, right? Look at cap-based fintech stuff. The moment it becomes economics of scale, sorry, human labor goes out the door. That's how decisions are made. However, I think humans are a wonderful living being. They make the weirdest ideas. They make also one of the most wrong ideas in the world, right? So I always tell my people, you watch Terminator, you think Skynet's going to take over us. Trust me, Skynet's going to fail, because humans are logical and illogical at the same time, and that's the beauty of it. You know, if I go up to someone and I say, hey, would you like to buy this red apple? It's good for your health. Logically, you should buy an apple because it's good for your health. But the human side of things, some of them maybe want to be resistant just for the sake of being resistant. Some of them like maybe grapes because I don't like red and green. You know, from an AI logical perspective, that's never going to hit the mark, because humans are so unique that they'll find their way to be different. You know, and I think story short is, yes, blue collar transactional work can be replaced when it's scalable. However, there will always be an element of human beings still involved, because they need to say, okay, if you install conveyor belt, how can I ensure the conveyor belt is rightly positioned? The system's not going to do that. Right. How can I ensure that the conveyor belt is rightly maintained maybe once every 2.5 days? The system's not going to do that. Yeah.
Right.
So it's really a matter of getting the humans like us to recognize what can be replaced by technology and how we can upscale ourselves. And then I think there shouldn't be too much of an argument of how much AI replaces humans in that sense.
So it's not really a threat to us in that way. I mean, as humans, we can always, I think as humans, we can always like come up with different ways of being involved somehow.
Exactly. I mean, again, I come back to metaverse, right? When you run out of Earth, what do you create? You create a new Earth.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, our dear friend in Tesla is already finding another Earth in Mars. Trust me, human requirement will always be there. It's just at what level and what skill set level. Yeah.
All right. Well, I would not be against the idea of going to Mars. How about you, Chin Ai?
I definitely agree with Hua Chun and Jean. And I think even just going back to our whole data management idea, right? Like, sure, AI might be able to actually help us manage that data and sort that data in a speed and efficiency that's way higher, right, compared to humans. But the human, at the end of the day, the human will still have to be the one to even like think of what formula for the AI to like manage the data, right? And to sort of be able to say, okay, these are the 2 out of the 100 data that I would need from you, AI. So AI, please help give me this 2 data, right? So I do think that, yes, there definitely are roles and job scopes and different skills that in a way can be taken away from humans. but also humans are so resilient and so sort of innovative, right? Like we've all mentioned and we've all sort of discussed. And so I do think that in that sense, if you're fearful of being not useful, or the skill that I would challenge students to really think, right? And say like, okay, like for the skill that I'm learning right now, is this skill going to be replaceable? And if it is, how do I make sure that I become irreplaceable, right? To an organization or to the world, right? So it's like, what part of this like thing that I'm doing, let's say, can be replaceable, and then how can I then actually then let go, right? Like Jean mentioned, technology is a tool, right, to help us, right? And so if I can get something to help me to do it, to run it, then I don't need to spend 8 hours of my time each day to run that, right? And actually just let the AI do it. And then I can then free myself up to say like, okay, what else in the system needs to be changed and what else in the system can be innovated? Then I can go and like busy myself to work on that. So I would say that I do think that human labor will be needed, right? And I do think human ingenuity will not end, and we will keep building more advanced AI and more advanced technology to help solve problems. But at the end of the day, also like we will not become obsolete in that sense, and human interactions is so valuable. I dread the Ready Player One world, but at the same time, right, I that is a possibility, and in that, but I also don't know whether like we would be willing to actually enter ourselves into that Ready Player One world so fast, right? So I don't know. I think this is a really good question, but I do think that if you have the core skills of critical thinking, analytical skills, right? Analytical thinking, and just the desire to learn and to know what's happening, I would say definitely read more, right? So like Jean mentioned this metaverse thing, definitely be exposed to what's happening in the world, because outside of Malaysia, things are happening really fast, right? So like the whole conveyor belt thing, I mean, Amazon has a whole like cashless and not even there's a cardless system, right, going on, right? You can literally just walk in and out, take your stuff, and they know exactly what you took and just deduct from your account. So like, yeah, so like keep yourself abreast of what's happening in the world is definitely something that I would encourage y'all to do.
I think we all got sort of a glimpse of that reality world when we all were in lockdown. The whole world was in lockdown, and we were all digital and finding ways to still be around each other without actually meeting each other because of the fear of the COVID spread. So yep, I think because of the pandemic, I personally have realized the importance of human interaction. I went from being an introvert to being somewhat of an extrovert now that the pandemic is over and I can go out. Have you experienced such lifestyle changes for yourself, Chin-Ai?
Oh, I'm a full-blown extrovert. So the pandemic was really hard. I think for me, I learned how to be by myself also, right? And to appreciate that silence and that solitude. So I think it was like a flip for me. But I think definitely like it definitely showcased how important real life in person sort of interactions are, and also just relationships are like, right? And so I think in that sense too, like I don't think I can be in Ready Player One, right? So it's that kind of world feels very scary to me as someone who enjoys the human touch. So lifestyle changes wise, I think really is the flexibility and the freedom to both have your full-time job, because we're talking about work, right? Both have your full-time job, but also upskill yourself during like non-working hours, and then also just potentially like even like exploring other sort of maybe side gigs, right? Kind of thing. So I think the pandemic has allowed me personally to sort of explore a little bit more outside of work. What are my interests and what are my interests that maybe is that I'm not necessarily an expert in, right? But really just to have fun and to hang out kind of thing. So yeah.
Very interesting. How about you, Jean? Are there any lifestyle changes that you've seen for yourself or that you've done for your work?
I think from a lifestyle change perspective, we always remember that the human side of things remain the same. Communication, communicate it well. You're maybe using a different lever, different mode of communication.
Right.
So you know, when you asked this question, I had some thoughts and I was thinking, okay, what really changed for me was that I now have to balance a world where I have an older generation who prefers physical meetings that is still going to be in the workforce for at least another 15 years. And these guys are the ones at power positions. They are the ones that says, you follow my way or the highway, right?
Okay.
I have a generation of people who are a lot younger and also probably the rest of the people in this call who says, no, my way is the only way. I'm not going to follow a highway. I'll create a new highway. Yeah.
Right.
And interestingly, we are stuck in those two generations now. And how do we bridge that? So those changes are very tricky. If I had a quarterly business meeting, do I do it physically? Because I know certain senior general managers will be there. But if I do it physically, maybe my slightly junior counterparts don't know how to present in a physical manner, because all this while they'll be presenting in short pants and t-shirt, maybe, right? In the old school world, you gotta dress up a little bit, wear a coat, wear a tie, or even simplest things like if someone presents a presentation or a business review, and your supervisor decides not to log into that call because of technological failures, you've got no one to back you up. You're alone.
Right.
As compared to the past where everyone will find a calendar meeting and say, okay, everyone can make it, right? And like it or not, if Chin Ai was my supervisor, I know she's got my back there, in a meeting because she's physically there. So the world has changed so much in that sense, and it's up to us now to bridge that in the middle. And to be honest, I'm still trying to figure it out, because I still have a bunch of them who are 15 more years that I need to appease and work with them, and I have a bunch that is going to be reporting to me for the next 30 years, and I'm like, yeah. So I think the key word here is striking a balance. Give credit where it's due. The older generation is going digital. They all understand what a QR code means now, because you can't enter a restaurant without it. Right. I think maybe for Chin Ai, especially before this, when you were doing fintech stuff, you get a QR code was tough from them. They were like, what's QR code? Yeah. Now they know what it is. It's simple. QR code, easy, no problem, right? But technology moves faster than every other human being. And that's where the challenge is. The younger generation tends to want to move even faster because they can. I think I have friends who have kids now in primary school, and at the age of standard 4, standard 5, they're learning basic coding. I learned my first sets of coding when I was working 9 years ago. It's very different, very different. So we need to be agile. I think the skill set that I'd say is we need to be agile. It's not a hard skill set, it's more of an attitude skill set. And we need to be very open to all different ideas. We cannot say my way is the only way. It isn't true anymore. Yeah, it really isn't true anymore. Yeah, so in that sense, I think we also need to balance that. The older crowd, the 15-year-old crowd, that is still has working lifespan left, they have experience that a lot of us have not seen, how the world works, how business runs. That's something we need to respect, and we can never take it away from them, right? But we also have to respect the new generation to say things can be done faster. Through internet, through digital, things can be done more seamlessly, more transparent, right? And some of us, I think myself, Chin Ai, unfortunately, we are the unfortunate in the middle generation stuck gap, right? We have to draw both of them together and say, let's work together. Yeah, I think having this mindset, and hopefully we pass it down to our younger generation. Say, be flexible, don't turn off the older people. We also listen to you at the same time. That is key. That is really key to survival in the next few decades.
Right. Yep. I definitely agree with you. I think a challenge that we will keep having for the next few years in the future is definitely to build that bridge between the older generation and the newer generation, because they are very different from each other in their thoughts and the way they do things. So yeah, I completely agree with you. That will be a challenge, but I think slowly over time, people will adapt to it. People will learn how to work with it. So hopefully they can bridge that gap. How about you, Huachin? What are your thoughts on this?
I think Jean summarized it up perfectly. Like, at the end of the day, it's all about balance, right? And that's why this hybrid work environment is what we call balance. You have the option to work from home and the option to go to the office. And sometimes meetings, half will be there physically, half will be there virtually. I think that's going to be the new normal, right? That people will learn to adapt to. And I think Chinai also mentioned, like her, I'm also an extroverted person, right? So I crave on meeting people. So when we were locked down, right? We realized like, oh no, I can't go out and I'm stuck. How do I do? What do I do?
Right.
I learn to adapt. I learn to pick up new skills. I get time to reflect, pick up on hobbies that you've never done before, because pre-pandemic, everything was hustle. Everything was a rush, right? You're always chasing, you're always rushing for things. It's work, then maybe social setting, then you got plenty of things to do. But when you are stuck at home with the pandemic, what do you do after work? Like, how do you find balance? How do you crave that human interaction that we need, right? So I think that's very important to have that balance. And coming back to the portion on technology, imagine if WhatsApp video call or video calls were not available during time. Imagine if the pandemic happened in the 80s. How will we be going through it, right? It's going to be a nightmare, right? I mean, we have to embrace that technology has helped make this pandemic a lot easier to manage, right?
Right.
So I think that's important.
Right. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. Since both of you were extroverted, my sympathies for what happened during the pandemic and everyone being closed off and indoors, even though for us introverts, it was a paradise somewhat for a while.
I think you take things for granted, like, Friday night drinks when you get to meet friends. That was something that was so normal before pre-pandemic.
Right.
But then after that, you're like, oh no, I can't go out anymore, right? What do I do? Friday night virtual board games, right? I guess you adapt and you learn and you move on.
Right. It's all about adapting, especially nowadays, to the new reality. We're coming to an end to our webinar. So my last question to all three of you is, what advice would you like to give to those that are freshly graduating or that are currently looking for jobs? Huachin, how about you go first? What's an advice that you would like to give?
I think when you're young and you're first graduating, don't give up. I mean, it's the working world can seem a bit daunting. For me, is to apply to as many opportunities as possible. Think of ways that make you stand out from your peers, because everybody has no experience, right? So when you're going for an interview as a fresh grad, what are you going to do? You can't sell your experience, but what you can sell is your personality, your willingness to work hard. I think Chinai mentioned about adaptability, how adaptable you are to new technologies. How are you going to demonstrate that even though with limited experience, they will hire you based on your determination, your resilience, key skills that a lot of hiring managers are looking for. I've spoken to a lot of hiring managers and they rather hire for attitude rather than skill, right? As long as the person has the right attitude, the right personality to give his all, there's always an opportunity for you, right? Yeah, and always go prepared for an interview. Never go underprepared. Do your research. If you're applying for a job in a fintech, make sure you know what they do. Don't just, a lot of fresh grads now, when they go for interviews, sometimes they don't prepare. They got so many opportunities, right? They just come in, okay, what is this job about? And you expect the hiring manager to tell you what to do. Don't do that, right? Always prepare. It's always better to be over-prepared than under-prepared, right? Yeah, and be humble. Right, that's the most important thing. A lot of times, because we're in a generation that everything happens so quickly and we get instant gratification, sometimes I feel that we are a bit entitled already. Always remember to be humble, right? No matter how successful you are, anything can, so that's my advice.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that advice. Jean, what is an advice you would like to give?
I think before I go to the advice, maybe I'd like to propose help to come up with a degree called degree in attitude, right? So from a recruitment standpoint, it's a lot easier for us to filter who we want and who we don't want. Typically, I think two things I like to share. Number one, who I see success stories in and who I don't. Yeah. The ones that I have brought into so-called N-Squared's ecosystem are people with exactly what Fortune said, right attitude. It's not so much on skill sets. Skill sets can be trained. Attitude is something you build since you were young. Yeah. So my champions in my company, it's all right attitude. You know, they know when to rush, they know when to stop, and they have a certain level of demeanor. Yeah, I think attitude is key. It doesn't matter what degree you are or what classification it is. I personally don't care. Yeah, I've even hired people who are diploma holders. I've even hired people who don't have a degree and they work out fine because they're hungry in life and they will go as far as they want to be. Yeah, I think back when I was in Accenture, my first job, my partner always told me, your career is in your own hand. You know, don't ever let anyone tell that against you. Your career does not belong to your boss. It's in your own hand. And I truly believe that today. Yeah. So, you know, on that sense, I think for fresh graduates or students like yourselves, go seek experiences that teaches you things. Don't seek experiences that gives you glamorous names. Doesn't work. If you go to a big company that is international and you end up doing photo stacking job, you're wasting time, right? Go somewhere that tells you, I'm going to give you a form of accountability. I'm going to test you out. You know, even though it's 5% or 2% of accountability, I want you to make or break it. That's where you learn. You know, celebrate your winnings with the company as much as you don't celebrate your failures, right? That has to be integral. Go for a position that tells yourself, I can see things materialize. I can see things come to fruition, and I can be accountable because you're lucky, guys. When you're young, you're accountable for a job that has a lot of people backing you up. In the future, when you become a parent, you're accountable for a son that no one is backing you up. Remember that it's a good training ground. Yeah. Find also opportunities that pushes you. You're young, you got stamina, right? And when you come to my age, I want to wake up at 2 a.m. to do a PowerPoint slide. I cannot, you know, guys. I tell you, my body clock is telling me you need to sleep. I'm getting old. 5 years ago, I can do an 18-hour shift without addition. Now I cannot. So always remember, your experiences is a function of hours you put in. It is not a function of how smart you are. It's really a function of how the hours you put in, how smart you put in those hours. So you have those hours when you're young. You don't have those hours when you're older. I don't know how old Chin I and Hua Chun is, but I'm at the age where I really cannot stay beyond 2 o'clock. Okay, yeah. And my last advice is do not limit yourself to one functional area. Be daring to explore. If I'm a finance and accounting graduate, so what? Jump to supply chain, go and pick it up, right? If you're in operations or IT, so what? Go commercial. I don't care. You know, at the end of the day, if you look at historical records of all successful GMs, they are never one-trick ponies. They have their whole careers. They have gone different functional areas to experience different things. That's how you become a leader of a group. You don't become a leader by knowing one thing. You become a leader by knowing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you so much for sharing that advice, Jean. I'm pretty sure it's very useful. Chin Ai?
Yes, I'm going to be quick because I know there's like 1 minute. Definitely agree with both what Hua Chun and Jean said. From personal experience, please do your research about the company. Don't come and tell me, I'm waiting, like, you know, don't come and tell me, what do you guys do? I'm like, you should have checked. Okay, so yes, do your research, and then better still, if you in your research you find something that you don't understand, and then after Google search you still don't understand, come and ask me about it. That I am more than happy to share. I'm more than happy to shed light and tell you what it's like to work in Cathay, right? But don't come without any research or without any preparation, right? So I think that's something that is really, really key. Like we've mentioned before, we're looking for good attitude. We're looking for people who are really ready and willing to learn and are hungry to learn, right? So whenever you have that attitude, you're going to be able to do well and do well anywhere and everywhere. Don't get tied to your degree that you're graduating with. You probably won't end up in the exact field that you graduated with. So I studied political science, philosophy, and economics. I'm currently doing HR work, right? So very different. It's very normal, especially in today's working world. So yeah, I would say also find out what exactly you want to learn for yourself, right? Do some self-reflection before you go into a job interview, right? Do some self-reflection. Ask yourself, what exactly are some skill sets I want to learn? Where do I want to head to in the next 5 years, kind of thing? Have an idea. You don't need to follow it 5 years down the road, right? But have an idea, because that will show your potential employers that you have thought a little bit more into your own career path, right? Like Jay mentioned, your career is yours. So yeah, and I would say also, I would challenge you guys to actually think of questions that you want to ask your interviewer. Because when you are going into an interview, it's not just your interviewer interviewing you, you are also interviewing that company, right? So whether or not you want to actually work in that company, it's your youthful years, right? So will you actually be able to learn? Will you be able to contribute? Have questions in mind, so that when we ask the standard question of, do you have any questions? You have actual questions to ask, and be humble in your approach. It's okay sometimes to take a lower pay for greater experience, right? Of course, don't get underpaid, but yeah. So yeah, that will be my advice.
Thank you so much, Chin Ai, for your advice, and thank you to all speakers. You've come to an end for the webinar. Thank you to everybody who came in to watch and to listen to our perspectives and our thoughts on what the future of work would be like and what the new reality is. So yeah, thank you so much. I would like to ask the speakers to stay back for a while longer. But thank you so much for to all the participants for coming in, and I hope you had a good time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Hope everybody has a good rest of the day. Have a good day. Thank you so much for coming. All right, I think it's just us now. Thank you so much for being a part of this webinar. Can I know your feedback? How did you find it? How is everyone doing?
I think it was a good session. I think Yin and Chin Ai was very, I think we interacted quite well. We covered most of the topics, right? It was good.
I'm glad.
I love Chin Ai. She's so bubbly, you know. I get so much joy, so much energy, and Hua Chun, I think it's important for them to hear where a recruiter's standpoint is. It's also very important. Some of them are quite lost when you go out to the working world.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it was like very practical stuff. So yeah, I don't think I am the same generation.
I'm definitely younger, right? Younger, right? So.
I was like, Chennai seems more of my generation.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
You
But
speak
totally
the older
understand.
generation language. That's
Yes,
great.
I do. Bridge, man, bridge.
Yes, the bridge.
Very important, very important.
Yeah. So when Jean shared about the story about your friend Shopee who was a new father when he had a meeting, right? I was also in the same predicament when the MCO hit. I think my baby was around 5 months. Yeah. So the struggle to juggle between a crying baby and you have back-to-back meetings, and we have a generation above us who don't quite understand how it feels like being like a working mom and you have a crying baby, Yeah, so it really brought back memories. Yeah, but thanks for sharing. Yeah. Yeah. Tiago, do you have anything to add?
Nothing. I just would like to thank everyone, and also Jean, Mr. Baldev sends his regards to you.
Still around, is it?
Yes, he's still around. He's still around. So when I send an email to all the deans and HODs, so there were a few emails that was mentioning about yourself, and they were like talking really great. Like we know this guy. He's a great person, and he was very active in uni time, and it's our pleasure to have you at this round. So I would like to thank everyone also. If there is any comments that you would like to give to us, you can email to Ambiga anytime, and we will try to have more webinar sessions. So we're planning to do this like 2 months once kind of thing, because at the moment, like what everyone said, is hybrid, right? So some of them are attending physical class, some of them. So we don't want to have these too much of open this one about the topic. So Mr. Eric is our department director. He just joined. So that was.
Hello, boss.
Hi everyone. Thanks. I came in out and was pleasantly surprised with the interaction, and great points you guys are making. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Oh,
It was our pleasure.
and Chin-Ai, your cousin, was also on.
Yes.
On the
yes.
email.
He was very excited.
Yes, he was very excited when he saw your name, and he quickly emailed me saying that, I'm going to be part of this call. And Jean Baldev is extremely excited that you were the speaker, because he kept on praising you left, right, and center in our WhatsApp group.
I got to say, to everyone, I mean, I had a pleasure of learning under Mr. Baldev, and he has changed my perspective in life entirely. That's how much effect he has on us. Unfortunately, he still doesn't share his handphone number, I think. So the only
I can privately give it to you if you want.
Yes, please. Yes, please. I mean, really, this lecturer of mine, Mr. Baldev, he's changed our perspective in life entirely. I think if anyone wants to have a refreshed mindset of how world works, he will be the one to talk to. I cannot thank him enough. Where I am today is definitely contributed by him, the other lecturers, Mr. Raj, Miss Marilyn, and all that. I hope they're still there. I'm not sure.
I'll tell Baldev that. Yeah. So when the advertisement went out, the two people that reached out, one was Edmund, this is Chin-Ai's cousin, who also works in our graduate school. He immediately said, I want to sign up because my cousin is speaking. And the next thing I know was Baldev, who puts it in our HOD chat group, and he says, he goes on to talks about your accolades in UEL. So thank you. But yeah, that's amazing. I came in for the last half an hour because it's on another training, but I think, it was an excellent points. We should see how best we can keep this momentum going, especially for, you talked about attitude, Jean. That's the challenge. The attitude is, we are saying, even from high school to secondary